Getting into the review of the SCT 43 SC frame from AIM Surplus. We're going to go over the SCT 43 frame today, go over what makes this better, different than the OEM, or even the Micro Dagger. Now, as you guys can see, I do like my SCT frames. These ones are all from AIM as well. We have the black, we have the gray, we have the OD green. The only one I don't have is FDE. So I'm going to go ahead and break these two guns down because these are two that we can compare it to. This is the Glock 48 complete OEM with the exception of the mag release. Then we have a complete OEM Micro Dagger. We'll compare the frames and the parts inside them. Now that the guns are kind of broke down, we can compare frames to frames. First thing I noticed, guys, is the texture on this. The texture on this is very sticky. As you guys can see, I'm moving my mat. The OEM, it is very slick, kind of a bummer, but it leaves you to be able to stipple it and do what you want with it later. And then the PSA Dagger, not much either. I would say grip, texture, paneling goes to the SCT. This thing is amazing. It's one reason I kind of go back to the SCT frames. We have the frames here like this. We'll just go ahead and go over some parts. The PSA Micro Dagger has a hinge trigger. The SCT has a regular Glock style trigger. And then, of course, the Glock frame trigger right there. The Glock does not have a rail here. It does have kind of a finger hook here. No undercut. The SCT does have two spots for rails right here. A little bit of a finger hook here. An undercut and an undercut of the trigger guard. Palmetto State Armory has a rounded off trigger guard. One spot for the rail right here, and just a little bit of an undercut. The best undercut, I believe, is probably the SCT. The Glock down here in the grip at the very end does not have much of a finger hook. It does kind of round off just a little bit there. The SCT has a much nicer, much formed, definitive hook right there, and so does the Palmetto State Armory. I would say the Palmetto State Armory Dagger, Micro Dagger, has probably the best little finger hook of the three. The Glock is flat down here, so if you needed to grip and pull the mag out, you wouldn't be able to. The SCT has a little bit of a notch there to be able to get your finger in there if you needed to. And the Palmetto State Armory Micro Dagger has a little bit of a shelf there that you're going to have to kind of dig into and pull out as well. I'm going to flip these frames up so we can look at the parts. So as I've zoomed in here, guys, so we can see the parts here, I want to point one thing out, and AIM Surplus and SCT do claim this, that SCT uses all Glock OEM parts. That is a huge advantage over the Dagger. I'll show you some things that I've noticed with the Micro Dagger. If you haven't already watched my video, I'll run some in here. Some issues I had with it. And these things are having issues. Straight out of the box, they are trigger. They're very easy to fix. I do know one person that did have their trigger break on them. He fixed it by replacing it. He could have sent it into Palmetto State Armory, but nonetheless, it did break on him. I had a trigger issue. A local friend here had a trigger issue. Another local friend here had to actually replace a trigger bar. So it is what it is. Palmetto State Armory is having some major issues with it. But nonetheless, let's get into the SCT frame and go over that. So as you guys can see, the trigger steer back here has a number just like the OEM. The numbers do match. If you look at the trigger bar here, the trigger bar is exactly the same. I'm going to show you guys something here real quick. If you guys look at the trigger bar on the Palmetto State Armory Micro Dagger, it is kind of a little faint. Those little ribs are not really that thick. Look at the OEM, they're very, very thick. And if you look at the SCT frame, they are very thick, just like the OEM. So it is definitely an OEM part. One other thing I want to show you guys, a difference here between the Micro Dagger is the ejector right here. This ejector is very thin. If we look at the OEM, it is very thick. It is about half again as thick. And so is the SCT. Very good on SCT. Go ahead and show these side by side. The Palmetto State Armory decided to use like an old style Gen 3 bag or slide release. The spring locks back up underneath here under the block. The SCT used exactly the same since it is OEM. The same as a OEM Glock slide release with the spring way up front here. And one thing I would say that SCT did better than the actual OEM frame is their rails are thicker. I hope you guys can see this. Palmetto State Armories are very thin and rounded right here. They're very similar. They're a little bit smaller, I'd say similar but smaller to the OEM. But you can see that the SCT rails are much thicker all the way around for better support. Overall, guys, I would say the SCT wins between the OEM Glock, which OEM Glock frames You guys are going to be looking at about $200 to get one of these, $200 to $250 for one of these. The Palmetto State Armory micro dagger, if you can get them, when you can get them, you're looking at about $100 to $125. The SCT is $110. Time you get your shipping and handling and everything like that, you're about $125. But I do see the big advantage over SCT, not only the texture and the design of the grip, but that they are using OEM parts, unlike micro daggers. All right, let's get out to the range, get these slides put on, throw some lead down range. So put the micro dagger slide on top of the SCT frame. We have the Samaritan from Gorilla Optics on top of it with the green dot. Now we're going to get into some ammo testing. I shot 115 grain full metal jacket. Now we have 115 grain hollow points. So I'm going to leave the micro dagger slide on top of it because I kind of figure that's what most people are going to go with. People are building these guns out and they're all going to run to PSA. I'll reserve my thoughts on PSA for a little bit later. 115 grain hollow points. Let's see how this goes. Not bad. So the next ones we have are 124 grain full metal jacket. Nothing special. A little more spicier. That's about it. All right, let's load up the next ones. So last but not least, what I got now is 147 grain full metal jacket. Gonna be even spicier. Works. Love it. So you guys may have saw or noticed that on the hollow points when we shot 4 rounds, I have one that will not go off. It has nothing to do with the slide or the dagger, but I'm just letting you guys know it is ammo related, not gun related. Let's go over the SCT frame. I highly recommend these SCT frames. I was going to call it the SCT subcompact. That's kind of basically what it is. I would recommend one of these over a dagger. For the extra $10, I see the value there with the OEM parts, with the grip texture. I can follow up a lot better shots. This grip paneling is 100% better, as I showed you guys in the video, than the dagger and on the OEM. The OEM has a lot to be desired, leaves a lot to be desired with their grip texturing. Palmetto State Armory did do a whole lot better with their grip texture. The only thing I see better with the Palmetto State Armory is that their beaver tail is a lot better. The grip on it feels a lot better than the OEM. This, guys, this is the best one, I think, of all 3 of them. If you guys are in the market looking for one, I would recommend going with an SCT subcompact frame. Now, this has been on loan from my buddy Bob. I greatly appreciate him letting me take this out and put the first 65 rounds through it, no problem. Now, any malfunctions we did have, the malfunctions were to do with ammo. They were nothing related to either the gun, the slide, or the mag. It was all ammo related because I'm using remanufactured ammo. So if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, appreciate that. Please subscribe if you're not already. Consider following me on social medias as well. And thanks for shooting the breeze with me. We'll see you next time.